I never thought we would have to go back to this. I honestly didn't. I'm more annoyed at the fact that we're coming back to this one fricked up game more times than not. So, fair warning, the subject of this game is a bit gruesome. So, if you're under teenage years, I would say 13, stop watching the video right now. Or if you're an adult with a kid nearby, or if you're an adult just passing by and you're hearing this, do not, and your kid's not like 13 and above, do not let them see this. This game is not meant for kids. Fair warning, I was disgusted when the first theory about this game came out. I am not a fan of the subject that this game brings up. So, yes, do not let your kids watch this. I just want to get this warning out of the way, mainly because A, this isn't something a kid should see, and B, it has some very tense subjects that a kid should not be a part of or see or hear about when it comes to this game. But for all of those that are adults, if you get a bit queasy, do pause the video and take a small break. I just want to make sure that everyone's okay when doing this, when going through this video, because this game is not for those that I lost what I was gonna say. I actually did. I actually forgot what I was gonna say. But yes, this game is not meant for those with weak stomachs and not a fan of this type of horror that would just make you green, or if you're very young. So yeah, just want to get that out of the way. Just want to make sure it's very clear about this one game, because Cooking Companion is not a fair game for one to play through. So yeah, just want to make that clear. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video though, hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button to be notified immediately when the video comes out. And a link to this video will be down in the description below. So if you want to see the original video, share the original video with friends and whatnot, go ahead, do that. But also be sure to give Game Theory some love and support for the video that they made that I'm reacting to. Finally, if you have any videos you would like to recommend that I should react to, put it down in the comment section below. And I'll react to it as soon as possible. So with this said, let's start this video. Ugh.
What makes the Chompettes from Cooking Companions different? Why did these 4 kids go on to become these adorable little kawaii vegetables instead of horrifying ghosts like everyone else does in this series? Well, after 3 years, we finally have ourselves a sequel, and with it, another crackpot theory.
Dread wait. Oh wow, a sequel to Cooking Companion. That is, I want to say terrific, but I know what Cooking Companion is, and I know the subjects that it brings up, so no. And for those that seen my reactions to the previous 2 Cooking Companion stuff, you understand it. It's in the playlist right there in the channel. You just need to go to check out the channel, go to playlist, and it's right there.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that never dreads the weight of law. And there's a lot weighing on my shoulders today because we are once again exploring the deep world of Slavic folklore with our adorable vegetable friends. That's right, we're talking about the sequel to the indie horror dating sim, Cooking Companions, the visual novel turned horrific cannibal nightmare fuel taking place in the 1930s. In that game, we took on the role of the Baba Yaga, an immortal witch from Slavic folklore that feeds on people that stumble upon her cabin in the Tartarus Mountains. Slowly, we end up eating our latest potential romantic companions. They do say the quickest way to someone's heart is through their stomach. These characters then
Not
go on
wrong.
to haunt us as we continue our slaughter. However, they aren't the only things that are haunting us. Throughout the games, we are also introduced to the Chompets, sentient kawaii vegetables that want to play games, help us out, and stop us from killing more people, mostly. One of them, Potato, is actually quite okay with the whole murder thing, so long as he can get his hands on something he calls the secret. We've had ideas about what this secret could be for a while now, with the most likely one being that it's the Baba Yaga's ability to live forever. But now, we've got ourselves a sequel, Dreadweight, and it not only reveals what the secret really is, it also finally answers a question that we have had since the beginning of this series. Why are the Chompets different? Why did they become adorable vegetables when our latest companions just became horrifying spirits? Was it because they were children? Was it because they were killed inside the cabin? Was it because they were killed specifically by Baba Yaga herself? Well, grab your carving knives.
That is a good question, actually. A strange one, but it makes sense why some people would wonder that question. Alright. Tell me your
Because
secrets.
we've got a whole new mansion to explore, and it is full of cryptic messages, Slavic folklore, and a brand new cast of characters to woo over. And they're all gonna come together to help us find the truth. I just hope you like the taste of meat. We start this game once again as the Baba Yaga, along with Potato, who, during the true ending of Cooking Companions DLC, convinced us to go outside, but not to touch grass. Instead, we are to eat everyone we find. We read the same note from that ending about a man named Ivan and swear revenge on the person who sent it to us right before passing out. Suddenly, we wake up in a new location, but something is different. Our way of speaking has changed, and I don't just mean the dialogue. The actual text boxes and menus have changed visual style. Clearly, we are now playing as a different character. Someone separate from the Baba Yaga, whose text box style was identical to what we saw in the first game. This new character wakes up in a mansion surrounded by a new group of romanceable characters, each one more intriguing than the last. First is Kurt, our youthful, rich, and mysterious host. There's Renata, Kurt's financial advisor. There's Dimitri, a young doctor who apparently can clean up blood real good. And last but certainly not least is Kurt's bodyguard and resident muscle mummy, Gisela. I'm telling you, she took one look at Buff Suki and said, #goals. It's at this point that both of our worlds begin to collide. Baba Yaga reaches the mansion, determined to end Kurt's life. And she is actually a lot more pleasant to look at than I was expecting.
Were you expecting something else? Little old me?
Guys, is it hot in here or is it just the old sauna I'm recording in right?
Is that like a disguise or something? I honestly was expecting elderly woman. I wasn't expecting a disfigured person. I was thinking more elderly person, not teenage, or that's like a cannibal. Honestly, I'm too iffy on the word. A, because it could get me canceled from YouTube. I don't want to say words that are going to be not okay to say. Mainly because A, I don't like using said words in this situation, considering that this game is based on a thing where this kind of word actually fits, and it actually fits for the character that we're seeing right here. I am not okay with using the word and all that, and I am very disgusted about the subject. So please, if you ever want me to flat out say it, do you realize I'm a bit uncomfortable using it in this kind of game or anything else? Mainly because A, I do want to make a video for you guys to enjoy, and B, I don't want to do something that would cause some warning signs or triggers on YouTube. I really don't want to do that. So yeah, fair warning.
Right now. As the night goes on, Baba Yaga slowly kills members of our crew. We are attacked by their ghosts, and we have to figure out who to trust. Baba Yaga, Kurt, or the new adorable spirits following us around, a duck named Max, and a rabbit named Clover. By speaking to all of our new companions, and by doing the Cooking Companion staple of clicking everything over and over again, we begin to realize what's really been going on at the mansion. Kurt has been doing experiments on the mansion's inhabitants, including us, wiping all of our memories in order to stop anyone turning him into the authorities. And of course, the game ends with multiple different endings that range from doing just that, turning Kurt in, to burning the mansion down to the ground, to once again falling in love with the Baba Yaga. I never really understood that from the first game, with her being described as an old hag, but now that I've seen her for myself, yeah, I get it. Anyway, that's the main story of Dreadweight, or at least the surface level one. But as we all know, there is way more than meets the eye with these games. There's a lot.
I'm not joking. It's kind of funny to see how Sims react. Seeing them get awkward and all that is hilarious to me.
Of secret lore hiding in this thing. So much so that I'm likely not going to get to cover everything in this video. So if there are mysteries I don't get around to solving today, let me know down in the comments. Or if you just really like this series and want more episodes on it, leave a comment as well, that works too. But let's actually start solving at least some of the game's secrets, starting with the same ones we did when we covered Cooking Companions. Where are we, when are we, and who are we? So let's start with the easiest one, the where. The Baba Yaga starts the game in Zakopane, but after a less than ideal interaction with a local, we move on, and when we ask Potato where we are, he says, northwest of the cabin. Helpful as always, Potato. That could mean anywhere from the most northwestern part of Slovakia to Poland or even Denmark, depending on how far we've travelled. Fortunately, our other main character seems to be able to get a little more information. Kurt mentions almost immediately that we took a boat ride to get to the mansion, and that it's located on an island. Gisela also mentions throwing someone's remains into the Baltic Sea, so surprisingly, I wasn't too far off with Denmark. Although there are a number of islands in the Baltic Sea that would be considered northwest of the Tartarus Mountains. So let's get a little more specific. Going back to our trusty Slavic folklore, there is an island that appears in a number of Slavic folktales. The island of Bujan. This island has the ability to appear and disappear with the tide, which is pretty useful for a guy who's trying to avoid the authorities. But some scholars have claimed that Bujan isn't a mythological place, but the Slavic name for a real island. An island known as Rügen, which is located in the Baltic Sea just off the coast of northeast Germany, which would be northwest of the Tartarus Mountains. Near the final moments of the game.
Interesting. That's a interesting detail to ever really notice. Also, for the previous comment about what I said about Sims, I do not know if that makes me sane, okay, or a bit weird. Yeah, probably weird. My bad. Sorry, everyone.
We see Kurt being interrogated as he pulls up to a port. When asked where he's coming from, he avoids the question, instead responding,
visiting some friends in Stralsund.
Stralsund is the most northeastern part of Germany and is the closest port to the island of Rügen. In fact, there's now actually a giant bridge connecting the two. So clearly, this mansion is located on the island of Rügen. And that means we're playing quite a way out from where the game first started. Zakopane to Rügen is about 830 kilometers or 516 miles. That would take a normal person around 8 days non-stop on foot. No wonder the Baba Yaga was passing out all the time on the way over. I find it hard just walking 10 feet to the cupboard to grab more M&Ms. So that's our where. Now the question is when. We figured out that the first game took place in the 1930s, and for the true ending of the game, the Baba Yaga left the cabin to terrorize local towns like Zakopane. At the very start of this sequel, the Baba Yaga gets shot by a man in Zakopane. That must mean that the game is following up almost immediately, right? Wrong. Just like we've traveled much further than you'd expect, this game takes place a little further in the future. As you explore the mansion, you can find letters hidden in various drawers, just like you could in the first game. However, in Cooking Companions, these letters tended to be fictional letters that gave us lore about the fictional characters. But in Dreadway, that's not entirely the case. Some of them are real letters, and sent by very important people. People like President Eisenhower and Joseph Stalin. And these letters are all on public record, which means we can use them to figure out when this game takes place. Two of these letters come from Nikita Khrushchev, the first secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and they're addressed to President John F. Kennedy. One about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and one about the state of Russian and US relations, both of which were sent in 1962. This game is taking place 3 decades after Cooking Companions.
That is a lot of distance between the two. 30 years. 1962. So this is way past World War II. jeez, that's
Is a
kind of
long
incredible.
time to hold a grudge, Baba Yaga. Although I suppose when you're an immortal witch, what's a few decades? All of that being said, while these letters are a good
true.
starting point, there was one other detail that pushes the date back a little further. If you choose to spend time with Dimitri, there's a chance he'll drop this little piece of information.
Glad we're prioritizing economic stability instead of warfare like the Americans colonizing Vietnam. What a joke.
Americans colonizing Vietnam. Given we just found letters from the 1960s, he can only be talking about one thing, the Vietnam War. The US put troops on the ground in Vietnam in 1965, and they remained there until 1973. So, for Dimitri to be talking about this invasion in the present tense, the war is still going on. And so, we are playing some time within those 8 years. I know, it's not the most exact date, I'll admit, but given this game takes place in Germany, it does place us during a really crucial time in German history. After World War II in 1949, Germany split into two independent nations. The Federal Republic of Germany in the West, who aligned with the Western democracies like the US, and the German Democratic Republic in the East, who sided with the Soviet Union. Due to these different ideologies, tensions were high, to say the least, and the countries remained divided until 1990, putting this game smack dab in the middle of those historical tensions. During this time, East Germany had a state security service known as the Stasi, and it was an open secret that they were tapping phones and reading mail to try and catch Western sympathizers. And guess what we hear from Dimitri when we ask him about the mansion's phone?
It's the only phone in the mansion. Kurt needs it to make calls. Besides, it's bugged.
Isn't the mail monitored too?
And when you ask who bugged the phone, Dimitri responds,
Don't play dumb. You know they're listening.
it's a perfect match. The time period, the location, the suspicion, it all points to the East German government being the ones who tapped Kurt's phone. They are the ones he is actively trying to avoid, which surprisingly leads directly into the question about who we are in all of this. I've already mentioned that near the end of the game, Kurt is interrogated on the docks of
Like, no joke, our character's name is literally you. No name, no nothing. We're just called you. A bit suspicious, mind you.
Stralsund. However, he's not being interrogated by just anybody. He's being interrogated by us. As the conversation goes on, the interrogator is knocked out and dragged onto the boat, exactly like we're told about when we first wake up at the start of the game. We are the ones interrogating Kurt at the dock, making us what was known as a Grenzer, basically a border control agent. Except it goes a little deeper than that. Grenzers were mainly responsible for one thing, shooting anyone who tried to escape across the border. But our character is doing a little more than that. They're running a full-blown investigation. In one interaction with Kurt, he confesses to having someone steal a horse from Baba Yaga, to which we respond,
Stealing horses is a crime, Kurt. Instructing someone to commit a crime is also a crime. I bet your folder's a kilometer high.
and Kurt replies,
What? Are you remembering?
Kurt reacts specifically to us mentioning his folder, as in his case file. For us to remember a case file means we aren't just a normal border control agent. We are more likely part of the GDR secret police, the Stasi. That's why we know about the mail being monitored, why Dimitri tells us not to play dumb when we ask who bugged the phone, and why Renata also seems suspicious of us to begin with, treating us like we should know about the lack of fair trials given to people like her who were listening to broadcasts they weren't supposed to. We are part of the problem. We are part of the secret police cracking down on people's freedoms. We are one of the bad guys. And in one of the endings, we actually do arrest Kurt, leading him
Damn, that's kind of a twist, being the bad guy in this situation. Well, in the historical standpoint, but yeah, of that time period. But yeah, we're technically the bad guy, because I don't know. I don't know what's the lesser of two evils, preventing one's freedom or a literal person that eats people. Yeah, I don't know which is the lesser of two right there.
to be tortured by the government and leading dictators to rule the world. So yeah, while we may not be an evil supernatural force like the Baba Yaga, I think you could argue we're actually much worse. However, it's at this point that I've got to be honest, I'm getting a little
50-50.
antsy. We've solved a lot of important details, but none of it really relied on the Slavic folklore that made the first game so interesting. Sure, it's nice to know that we aren't some kind of supernatural being and instead are a real monster, a human being, but if we aren't the mythological creature in this story, then then who is? I mean, someone's gotta be from folklore, right? Would be a bit depressing if this time around there wasn't any new folklore for us to dive into. Thankfully, though, theorists, there is someone who fills in that need. Our new hospitable host, Kurt. If you haven't noticed, Kurt is a little bit shady. He kidnaps us, wipes our memories, lies to us constantly. Oh, and he lies in our bed to watch us sleep. Dude, at least buy me dinner first. On second thought, maybe not. But if none of that made you realize we can't really trust him, then take a look at what Baba Yaga calls him during the end of the game.
I'm not telling her anything, Kurt.
She's using quotation marks around his name, as if Kurt isn't actually his real name, just another lie. So, if Kurt isn't who he says he is, who is he really? We know that he's a character with a connection to the island of Buyan. We know that he has a connection to the Baba Yaga, but the weirdest detail is actually from the end of the game, where Baba Yaga holds out an egg, crushes it, and in doing so, Kurt literally disintegrates before our very eyes. That's not usually how death works, but it does tie him to a very specific character from Slavic folklore, Koshai the Deathless. Like most Slavic villains, there are a lot of stories about this guy, each with their own different interpretations. In some, he's Baba Yaga's sibling. Other times, he's married to her, which might explain why she keeps calling him Sweetie in one of the flashbacks. One of the most famous stories is Tsarevich Peter and the Wizard. In it, Koshai isn't a supernatural being like the Baba Yaga. He is instead a wizard, and he uses his magic for one specific goal, to achieve immortality. Looking at Kurt, it's clear he has been doing the same thing. During the final confrontation, Baba Yaga implies that Kurt has been around since the witch trials, which in Europe were between the 15th and the 18th century. So a good century and a half before this game takes place, he has managed to find immortality. And in a conversation with Dmitri, he voices frustration.
Oh, okay, so that means he kidnaps people, absorbs their life essence, and uses that essence to make himself younger and all that, or stay young for however long it takes for each essence he absorbs, right?
That the Baba Yaga is able to achieve these sorts of things so easily, while he's having to use science, old tomes, and rituals in order to achieve it, just like Koshai. But Kurt clearly did manage to achieve immortality in the exact same way Koshai did, by disconnecting his soul from his body and putting it inside a needle. He then puts the needle inside an egg, and puts that inside a duck, and then inside a hare, inside a box that is buried in the forest on the island of Buyan, the exact same place Kurt's mansion is located. Plus, at the end of the game, Baba Yaga finds the box buried in the forest with two bodies inside. During an ending where we arrest Kurt, he is accused of improper storage of animal remains, and throughout the game, we've been haunted by the spirits of Max the duck and Clover the hare. These two spirits belong to the two bodies inside that box. Clover even references having their ribcage broken open and having Max sewn inside. There's also a bunch of other references to Koshai the Deathless throughout the game. Kurt's ceremonial room underneath the mansion contains a throne made for two people and a rusty iron sword, which is referencing this painting by Viktor Vatsnisov of another famous story, The Death of Koshai the Deathless. In this story, Koshai steals the wife of the main character, Ivan, but Koshai's horse is too fast to catch. Koshai, however, lets it slip that Baba Yaga has a faster horse, and so Ivan goes to get it. Baba Yaga doesn't want him to have it, so in the end, Ivan steals the horse. She chases him but fails and falls into a lake of fire, matching a nightmare that the Baba Yaga has during cooking companions. But with Kurt apologizing about Ivan stealing a horse in the letter and in the final confrontation, it's clear this wasn't just a nightmare. It was an actual event that happened, and Kurt is to blame because he is Koshai, and now he will pay the price for it. So, there you have it. Kurt is Koshai the Deathless, a man that envied Baba Yaga's ability to live forever, and so found his own means of immortality through dark magic and elaborate schemes. But then, what does this have to do with The Secret, TM? I mentioned it at the start of this episode, and if you've been following our coverage of these games, you'll know that The Secret has been a big mystery throughout each installment of the series. In the first game, Potato continually asks Baba Yaga to tell him the secret. In the DLC, we find out that Potato has been desperate to learn the secret since they were human. And then during this game, Potato is still trying to figure it out. However, despite its constant mentioning, we've never truly known what the answer is, which I guess makes sense. It is called The Secret for a reason. Last time
thought
we
we'd get,
came
like,
to
a
the
hint or
conclusion that
something.
it must have something to do with eternal life, mainly based on Potato giving us this line in the original game.
I'm living longer than expected already, but this is good information to take with me.
If he's living long already, it implies that this secret would be able to extend his life somehow. Then, when I first got to the end of this new game, I felt like we had pretty much nailed it. In some of the game's endings, Kurt will hunt you down and kill you because you gave away the location of his soul egg to Baba Yaga. Just before he does, though, he gives you this line.
You're given the greatest secret humans have ever known, and you squandered it.
During your different playthroughs, Kurt can give you a number of different things, but there is one item that is consistent regardless of your choices. At the start of the game, you are given a drink of water, and one of the responses you can give after drinking it is, I think I swallowed a hair. As the game goes on, we find out that,
What?
yes, it was in fact a hair. Kurt has made everyone in the mansion eat one of his hairs, which in turn makes them immortal, just like he is. So we are now immortal, and according to Kurt, that is the secret that we have squandered. So, case closed. The secret is eternal life, right? Well, not exactly. Because if you do go on to kill Kurt, Potato says this.
Why didn't you brew a stew of some of his hair? I could have had a sip, just enough to learn his secret. Why didn't you let me ask him?
In this moment, Potato seems to know what Kurt's hair does, and believes if he drinks it, then he will learn the secret. If all he wants is eternal life, then why would he need to learn about it after drinking a hair?
If it's not eternal life, probably extended life? No, that wouldn't make sense. But that is an interesting sentence that was said by Potato.
He'd already have what he was after, which means eternal life cannot be the secret, or at least not the full secret. Earlier on, when you find the box containing Kurt's soul egg, Potato asks once again,
Can't I at least ask him about a secret before you do it? Just leave me with his research papers. I can figure it out.
So, the secret has to do with Kurt's research and experimentation. As we've discussed, Kurt didn't achieve his immortality by natural means. He used science and magic to do so. It eventually worked, but in order to achieve it, he had to transfer his soul into something else that he could then hide somewhere safe. During the ending where we burn the mansion to the ground, the duck Max also mentions Kurt helping him achieve a similar goal.
I used to hold out hope that helping Kurt achieve his goals would lead him to helping me, letting my spirit rest or transferring me into another more capable body.
Transferring me into another body, just like Kurt transferred his soul into a needle inside an egg. The secret isn't the ability to live forever, but the ability to live forever and stay young and capable by transferring your soul into a new body each time your old body fades. That is what Potato has always wanted. When he was human, he wanted to be put in a more capable body, and can you really blame him? I mean, look at that face. That's a face only a mother could love. But now he wants out of his starchy prison to return to the world of the living so that he can go on to kill again for himself. But hang on a minute. This may have been how Kurt achieved his immortality, but Potato first tried to learn this from the Baba Yaga, and she's not transferred her soul to stay alive. That was actually our first ever theory on this franchise, but it got debunked thanks to the DLC. So why would he have asked her for the secret if the secret is soul transferring when her immortality wasn't tied to that? Well, she may not have done it to herself, but that doesn't mean the Baba Yaga hasn't dabbled with a little soul manipulation on other people. During the story, both Dimitri and Renata die at the hands of the Baba Yaga, and both of them turn into creepy monster ghosts just like Mariah, Anatoly, and Gregor did in the original game. We at first thought this was happening because they died outside the cabin, which would make sense. We aren't in the cabin for this game either. But then Onion comes along and gives us a little more insight into how we killed Renata and Dimitri.
Tearing their spirits from their bodies was definitely the right move.
She didn't just kill them, she tore their spirits from their bodies. Later on, you can be shot by Kurt, but remember, we're still immortal at this point, despite being shot in the face. But then, Baba Yaga cradles us in her arms and tells us our torment is over. We feel the knife press against us, and suddenly we end up in a white space with either Dimitri Dimitri or Renata, depending on your romance choices. Just like theirs, our spirits have been allowed to move on, and that was only because the Baba Yaga removed our spirit from our bodies. She too has the ability to manipulate and move souls, and that is why Potato first went to her for the secret. However, the revelations don't stop there, because now that we understand what the secret is, it actually begins to answer another question we've had since the original game. Ever since we first covered it, we have been wondering why it is that Chompettes haunted the Baba Yaga as cute vegetables rather than angry spirits like Mariah, Anatoly, Gregor, Renata, or Dimitri. It's all because of what we've just been talking about, the soul. Remember, Renata and Dimitri had their souls removed, and from there, they became the nightmare-inducing spirits. That means for Mariah, Anatoly, and Gregor to be the same, the Baba Yaga also removed their spirits after death. So if you become a weird, creepy ghost when your soul is removed, does that mean the Chompettes are the Chompettes because their souls weren't removed? The answer is a resounding yes, because in Dreadweight, we also see what happens when you don't remove a spirit after death. When we find Max and Clover's corpses inside the box in the woods, they are very clearly dead, at least according to Potato, and yet their ghosts still haunt the mansion. Though they aren't angry spirits like Renata or Dimitri. Instead, they're a cute little duck and rabbit, just like the adorable Chompettes. Earlier I mentioned that during Max's ending, he wants nothing more than to be transferred into a more capable body, but he also says he'd be happy if he was just allowed to move on, just like Renata, just like Dimitri, and just like us. The reason he and Clover maintain these cute animal spirit forms is because their souls were not removed from their bodies. They're still trapped inside, unable to move on. And that, my friends, is why the Chompettes are different. Unlike Mariah, Anatoly, and Gregor, the Baba Yaga ate these children but didn't release their souls before doing so. They are now stuck here, unable to move on. It may even be that the reason they're vegetables is because their souls transferred into the vegetables that they were being cooked alongside. We did hear them mention being cooked inside of the oven or the cauldron during the first game, but that's just speculation on my part. Regardless, this is why they constantly beg her to let them move on throughout the original cooking companions.
Will you let us go? Someday, maybe?
All they want is to be free, to have their spirits transferred and allowed to move on. But Baba Yaga couldn't bring herself to do it, because otherwise she'd be completely alone. And as we've seen from her relationship with Kurt, to her relationship with Karen, to holding on to Potato, all she really wants are some cooking companions. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory!
Alright, that's a horrifying thing to deal with, not going to lie. I'm a bit unnerved by this new information and detail. Like, I do not know how to respond to this. How do you respond to this? But, yes, this is, well, we found out some new stuff, like the fact that all this lore is canon into this series, so any lore is probably canon by this series universe. Yeah, by this series own universe, it should all be canon. So, yeah, this is, how does one go about this one? I do not know. I honestly don't. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button, be notified immediately when the video comes out. And yeah, I do not know how to respond to this. I really don't. So, this is interesting. Yeah, I honestly have nothing to really say in this matter, but I'd like to hear your opinion in the comment section below. Other than that, be sure to give Game Theory some love and support for the video they made, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!